Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me are a couple of my partners in crime. That would be Moen Show and Immaculate View. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Got some
Excellent.
new toys.
Yeah, we do, and that's going to be fun. We're going to be introducing a lot of that stuff. We talked about it last week. As these weeks march on towards the end of the year, we're enabling new features for members. We're adding new content, and you guys are here, and you're part of it. We really appreciate everybody being here. The Wild Ute will be joining us. I'm not sure what time. He has family commitments that we always, his family's first. But as soon as he joins us, we'll have some really good conversations. There's things that we want to talk about tonight. Obviously, there's still stuff going on with Florida State. The president of the College Football Playoff Committee, Baker, is kind of a nut job. He's gone off the rails a little bit with some of his comments recently. And, oh my gosh, the Big 12 Mafia Show just gifted 5 memberships. So click on that member gift. See if you can hook up and be a member if you're not already. That's gifts that we are now doing. So click that button, baby. And we appreciate everybody being here with us tonight. On top of that, we have with us Matt Loveless.
There he is.
Representing Washington State University. How you doing, Matt?
Doing well, gentlemen. How you all doing?
Good. I appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Yeah, been a bit, but happy to be here again. Inside this time.
That's right. That's right. Last time we were a little on the road, but we appreciate you being here, and we want to know what you're thinking about Washington State and Oregon State. We'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
As soon as you get here, we'll kind of do a rundown. But basically, we want to spend some time with Matt. We want to talk about the ruling that happened with the Pac-2 now, and how that legal conservatorship is passed to these two schools, and what are their next steps. Hopefully, Matt will kind of give us some keys into what they're kind of thinking from an organizational standpoint. Other than that, we'll also bring in Florida State. Like I said, we'll talk to Charlie Baker. He was kind of a nut job, I think. And then whatever else we're sort of on the top of our mind. Before we get started, I want to encourage everybody. There's 41 people watching. If you're not a member, I encourage you to be a paying member of the show. There's a lot of features that are given to you, and I'm going to run a little video here, and you can find out how to become a member.
Become a member of Big 12 Mafia by going to our homepage and hitting the join button located next to the subscribe button in the upper right corner. There are several membership levels to choose from.
And just like that, you can become a member. Also, if you're new to the show, make sure you subscribe. Those are free, obviously. For you, subscribe on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube. And then, welcome to the party. We just sort of dive right in here. We don't have a lot of other stuff we want to talk about. So, Matt, I'm going to start off with questions, and I don't know what Moen and Immaculate might have in their minds for questions. But for me, the very first thing is, especially being from the Pacific Northwest, I understand how important Washington State and Oregon State, but in my world, it was Washington State football is to that area, especially to Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon, all of Idaho, and even into Montana, how strong the brand is of Washington State. That ruling, the celebrations on Twitter were marked, and I think they were very powerful. Oregon State had a bunch of people representing their side. Kind of walk us through kind of what your first thoughts were when that came out. I doubt it was a big surprise for you. I think most people thought it might happen, but actually I take that back. I think most people might have thought University of Washington might dominate because the politics is in the western side of the state. So anyway, tell us what you're thinking about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the background is, as soon as it went to the Supreme Court, I'm a professor by trade. So I did a bunch of research and figured out who are these Supreme Court justices. And like 5 of the 9 had either undergraduate or graduate degrees from the University of Washington. So I was like, okay, so how are they going to view this? They sort of sent out an initial missive. The commissioner of the Supreme Court was like, okay, I see UW's argument and I see Washington State and Oregon State's argument. So it was a little bit hard to figure out where they were going to lean. So to sort of answer your question more directly, it was the day it happened. I go, already? Like, that was my reaction. I go, I can't believe it happened that fast. I had a conversation with the clerk of the Supreme Court on the 12th, the day that all of the deadlines were for motions and responses. And if you followed me on Twitter, you probably saw a little bit of the back and forth that was happening in the court documents. But I was surprised because she said, usually after the new year, we'll put something on the docket. I think it says something that the Supreme Court was so fast to not only not rule in favor of the University of Washington, but not even consider the case. And so I want to make that clear to people watching. It wasn't like they were deciding between the arguments. They decided whether or not it was worth hearing the arguments. And so I think the speed at which that decision came from the Supreme Court was the only thing that surprised me. In fact, you had reached out to me, I think that was on Friday. I was at a mall in Seattle, Washington, taking Santa pictures with my kids. And I was like, I got to get somewhere so I can read what happened here. I think you saw it. It was a 2-paragraph quick. No, we denied the discretionary review, which it was a little bit just as a coup. You go, all right, governance. That's all we want. And now what I want is clarity moving forward, honestly.
So, and I always do a couple questions, then I'll turn it over to Moen and Immaculate. But because this was so sort of sudden, and people did expect it to go a little bit longer, I got the sense that the Pac-2 really is leaving the leaving 10. They were shocked. I didn't see a lot of counterpoint once the ruling came out. I didn't see huge announcements saying, "Oh, we're going to fight this to the bitter end," and all these. Where has that been? Where's that anger been at? And it's almost like, have they given up at this point?
To their lack of response, and here we are 4 full days later, tells me that they were caught a little off guard. I don't know if you recall. I mean, the last time we spoke was right after the ruling in Superior Court, and almost by then they had already appealed to the Supreme Court. It was that fast. I mean, within hours they had that ready to go. They had both sides had the responses. Obviously, WSU and Oregon State came out with a really sort of couple of sentences like, we're super proud and happy about the decision. Still nothing from the others. So it's interesting. I don't know if they're trying to obscure a little legal strategy or something like that, because I don't know that they have a whole lot of options left in Washington State based on a cursory knowledge that I've built up over the last few months of the court system here in Washington. Certainly there's litigation that could happen elsewhere. I guess it'll be interesting to find out their next steps. They're not saying anything to anybody. So your guess is as good as mine. I have a little insight into maybe some of their options, but aside from that, I mean, when a Superior Court rules and a Supreme Court decides that you can't even appeal it, that's a big deal. And so it's just, I think ultimately it ends up being a really big win for Wazoo and Oregon State.
Immaculate.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we saw from it was shocking. I don't think anyone was predicting that they wouldn't review this. I was thinking that they were going to go to the appellate court with it and send it down. Mm-hmm. I think Judge Libby, the Superior Court, really saw where this was going, and he laid that stipulation down. Mm-hmm. Basically saying he knows this is going to get appealed. Do you think that that's what did it? The stipulation that you guys can't harm the other schools with your...
Yeah, and you know what? As a Washington State fan for my entire life, I think that was real smart by University of Washington. When we talked about it before, I kind of said there was a little bit of a victory there for the departing 10 schools. There's actual language in the order that says you got to treat the departing 10 fairly.
Right.
I don't think that Washington State and Oregon State were planning on keeping everything.
No, sure.
But I think of things like Comcast overpayment, $72 million that was overpaid to the conference that had to be taken back. Mm-hmm. They emptied the conference reserves for something like that. And so what does Washington State and Oregon State want to do? Well, they want to refill those reserves first. They want to keep the conference alive. So that's why they withheld this $60 million payment, this mid-year payment that was supposed to go out for media rights. So all that said, I think it was smart and forward-thinking for the judge to go, we need to make sure that WSU and Oregon State can't run rampant. They can't take all the money where steel gets thrown out a lot. I don't think anything like that's going to happen. And I think ultimately what the Superior Court decision did was enough to set some guidelines for Washington State and Oregon State to govern responsibly, appropriately, fairly, but also with the power to control all of the uncontrollables that exist right now. I mean, we see lawsuits over NIL and that we don't know what are going to happen with those. I honestly don't know the long-term strategy. There's all sorts of maneuvering that will need to happen. But yeah, that's I'm glad that we're told to keep it fair, but then I would ask, what does that mean to say treat the others fairly? That's what's going to be litigated in long term. What is fair? Everything? Nothing? Some? What does some mean? That's the fun we get to have over the following months and years. And then, what's funny about, not funny, but interesting about all this is August 1st, 2024, those of you who know legal processes, that's 8 months away, less than 8 months. Soon they're not even going to be members of the conference. They're going to be playing for the Big Ten. I don't know if you saw Oregon's Big Ten contract was submitted at a public records request months ago, was actually fulfilled. So we got a first look at Oregon's Big Ten agreement. And so they're going to be off and running on the next thing. So all those legal battles kind of become moot after August 1st, other than fairly treating the money that's being tied up and how that's distributed eventually.
Moen.
Yeah, with the scheduling agreement with the Mountain West Conference, and it looks like the continuance of the Apple Cup and the Civil War games. Do you think this is leaning more towards the Pac-12 being rebuilt using Mountain West teams?
That's always what I've thought. That ultimately that's what it is. That logo itself is worth more money than most of what the Mountain West can give those teams. I think that there's already been a little bit of the Mountain West trying to protect itself from becoming what the Pac-12 became over the course of this summer, from just destroying it. The San Jose States of the world, are sort of keeping a keen eye on what's happening with our court case. Every time that I update information, I'll get like a San Jose State beat writer going, well, here's what it means for the Spartans. And so I think there are a lot of Mountain West teams, like I say lower level. I hate to say it because here I am, Washington State, a lower level Pac-12 team.
There's a hierarchy though.
Yeah, there is a hierarchy, and happy to be honest about that. So I think that people are watching that closely. Mountain West said, we don't want you to just poach your 8 favorite teams. So I don't know what sort of legal protections there are in that. That was sort of one of the negotiating points before the scheduling agreement. That was not something that was announced as part of the scheduling agreement. So Wazoo's in Oregon State, going to pay $14 million to play 6 of their teams. Just by happenstance, Washington State will play 8 of them. And so that's thanks to some pre-existing agreements. So it'll be interesting. I mean, that scheduling agreement, I think, is the beginning of a relationship based on some of just my Cougar friends who are not super excited about the schedule. I say, I think the hope from an administrative level is this is rock bottom. And rock bottom is a very manageable football. I mean, there's still going to be football games in Pullman. And we talk about this community sort of relying on that. That's still going to happen. How excited are you going to be for that home game against Hawaii? I don't know. But it's a football game. And as much as we're going to hate it, we might really, really like going 10-2 next year as rock bottom and then figure out, the line that they keep using here is positioning ourselves for the next round of realignment. So whatever the hell that is. And hopefully that's it. I don't know did you guys hear Chip Kelly talk at the LA Bowl over the weekend?
I did listen to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, there's elements of that are interesting, feasible. It sounds great if he could build that utopia with his words, maybe. But I think ultimately, just for people who maybe, as I sit in my house here in Pullman, Washington, the perspective over here is that maybe some elements of that are going to happen. And so what we need to do here is to not crumble, secure those Pac-12 assets, do some stopgap scheduling. I think they're on the cusp of a basketball schedule with the Mountain West already. And then wait for the next thing to happen. And so, I don't think we'll wait for total upheaval, realignment, top 64, bottom 64 kind of scheduling. But ultimately, this 1-year buffer allows us time to find a place that's a little bit better. And I think that, teams that bolted for the ACC, geez, do they see the writing on the wall right now when it comes to, their perception
Right.
and what happened to the Pac-12 as a result of all that? So I don't know. I don't feel terrible about where we are considering where we were about 3 months ago.
So I'm sure you've seen it. You're active on Twitter. There's some very imaginative. We even have some in our viewing audience, people that have come up with some imaginative scheduling and reorganizing of conferences and dynamics. You've seen these ideas of mashing the Big 12 and the Pac-2 and the ACC together and creating this, sort of uber super conference and some of these ideas. Do you see or get a sense that any of that is real? Is that just hopeful guessing by people? I mean, you're in media, so you have to have some exposure to what some of these ideas are. A lot of them seem fairly out there to me.
Yeah, and not to spend this whole conversation just hedging my bets, but I think there's probably elements of it that could be real. I think a lot of it's pie in the sky, which my kook friends again keep saying, "Well, now we can buy our way into the Big 12," and I go,
Right.
It's not as simple as just saying we'll take a reduced share because we have this Pac-12 money. There's still a distribution that needs to happen, and we've already been told the Big 12's not really interested in doing that. So I don't know. Maybe this ruling changes some of that conversation. Maybe what happened to the ACC sort of changes the Big 12 strategy. I don't know. So I think it's possible that there are elements of that are real. I don't know. I can't forecast long term. The most annoying conclusion to this is that we just have one giant conference of power teams that get split into regions. Like, let's say there's 12 teams in the West.
Right.
Let's say there's a dozen teams in the Great Lakes. Let's say there's 14 teams in the Southeast. You know what that is? The system we had forever. And so it's ultimately we'd go back to just having the Pac-12 and the SEC and the Big Ten as we knew it again. So this is me ranting now, but I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be this big conglomerate, and then you're going to go, well, we can't play 63 games against the other 63 teams. So let's split off regionally, and we'll be like, no crap. So I think what has to happen is, this is all about money. We know it's all about money. And so who can make money where? You mentioned Charlie Baker. I'm actually curious at the end of our conversation about this to get your thoughts on him, because I met him a couple of weeks ago when he came. Oh, it's about a month ago. He came to Pullman for a football game, one of the last football games of the year.
Okay.
So I asked him about that. Like, what's the long-term forecast? Didn't have much of an answer. He's a politician, and so he answered it like a politician. But that's the long-winded way to say I think that what we tend to do, and let me rant about society, is that we overcorrect when we see a problem, and then ultimately we settle into this middle ground. And I think the middle ground is an equitable version of what we've had forever, and that's regional-based football conferences and leagues that ultimately get to send enough teams to a championship to, decide a deserving champion. I don't know. It's wild. I just feel like we're in the middle of this sort of full circle moment right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely a lot of pawns that are moving. There's no doubt about that. Immaculate, do you have another question?
Well, I guess I was kind of curious on what the general feeling is, because now you are two schools that are no longer suing your conference. There's legal ramifications for that, and there's things that are now possible that maybe weren't possible before. In terms of the Mountain West Conference deal, I think it's pretty interesting that you guys decided to pay for a scheduling agreement that leaves, I guess, another path open, whatever that other path might be, or options. Is that kind of where you guys are sitting right now? Is that you aren't committed in any one direction, but kind of sitting back and waiting to see what could present itself in the future?
I think so. I think part of that is still just waiting to figure out what exactly all the money is that the Pac-12 assets have. I think the number that's been thrown around a lot because of that text exchange with Kliavkoff and Canzano is $420 million.
Right.
Is that just it? I don't know. Is there more than that? And I think, every meeting that we've had with WSU administration has just been they're not being totally forthcoming, and we're not exactly sure whether or not the conference is doing that on purpose, or they don't have all the, they don't have their act together. I mean, would you be surprised to hear the Pac-12 conference doesn't have its act together? I don't think so. So I think that there's a little bit of figuring out how much money they have. Now, my guess is by now that I'm sure there's a whole lot of governance conversations happening between the presidents at Wazoo and Oregon State, figuring out what those future liabilities are. I know everybody's getting tired of the word liabilities, but they got to figure out how much money is going to come out of that revenue distribution. So I'm guessing there's some scheming that's happening now that they have governing control. My advice to Washington State, if they ask me, which I'm on the advisory committee and they're not asking my advice, they're telling me what they're deciding. My advice is to govern with a little bit of clarity. Let's talk a little bit more about, if not exactly what they want to do, why they've made some of the decisions they've made. I sat here and said, well, they want to refill the conference coffers with that $60 million payment that they withheld. I want them to say that so that it's not so obscured what the plans are. So
Do you
go ahead, Mike.
If I could just add one thing to that. Do you think that the House versus NCAA court case and the numbers being thrown out that the conferences might be liable for in the future, do you think that's also considered as part of the liabilities that have to be considered? Because if it is, I mean, I don't know if you guys can even afford any payouts.
Right. That's what's interesting. And yes, that is among the considerations. They specifically talked about this $1 billion NIL suit.
Okay.
That's one of those that has to come out. I don't know exactly how the NCAA would handle asking conferences for the money from that. I'm sure Wazoo and Oregon State would go, not really fair to ask the Pac-2 and the Big 20 to pay the same amount. And so I don't know if there's a deal.
Right. Because schools are leaving.
Yeah.
Like you could say USC maybe had a lot more value in that than Washington State did. And should you be saddled with all of their past decisions and such?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're having a lot of conversations about things that just are untenable, situations that it's the Wild West out there, as we know. I don't think anybody's super happy about how the transfer portal works and unlimited free agency. I think every fan base thinks that their team and coach are terrible at retaining talent, when really it has nothing to do with talent. It has maybe a little to do with opportunity. It has a lot to do with money. Every team is just losing so many players. And so I think that's the big frustration.
Gotcha.
So before I get to Moen's next comment, which Moen, that you might go off that NIL statement because he has an Ohio State one he could talk about right now, Matt. But let me really quick bring up a comment from one of our members, and that's Sergeant Pickles. He's a UW grad. You can see there by his icon. But he's been a great member of the family, and we really appreciate him contributing here. So he says, question for you, would the P2 accept full share membership in the Big 12 on the condition they absorb all the PAC assets?
When we say they absorb all the Big 12,
they need the Big 12 would get those, yeah.
That would be a hell of a pitch from Washington State and Oregon State, depending on what those assets are. I don't think that's a terrible idea of something to ask for. I don't know how realistic that is or feasible something like that is, but I think that's what you're talking about when you consider buying your way into the Big 12 conference. Maybe that's the way to do it, at least initially. Certainly something that could happen. I know that they're sort of worried about so many different things at once, including scheduling for literally all of their sports that are coming up over the next year. Once a lot of those are set, we'll probably get a clearer picture of the strategy. One thing that I do want to note, that the scheduling agreement with the Mountain West is just for 2024. WSU and Oregon State have the 2024, 2025, and 25-26 years to be able to have this little buffer zone. And so the question remains is that second year too, what's going to happen there? I think something like that, Sergeant Pickles, is certainly a pitch that they could make. Power conference access remains like a top priority for the student athletes here. So they have said as much. They really want that power conference, whatever that means.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's a possibility. I mean, in terms of would they accept a full chair and would they offer some of those assets? I couldn't speak for Pat Chun and Kirk Schultz. My guess is that they're exploring that as an option. I mean, it's no secret that the documents have been released. Kirk Schultz reached out to the Big 12 right after the conference sort of crumbled in August and
Right.
said, hey, would you take us? We know that there have been pitches made to power conferences. And for one reason or another, it was no, it was not right now. It was, we've already split the pie too much. Arizona and Arizona State beat you to it.
Right.
All of that is involved. Maybe this changes things. Sure.
I think the gauntlet has been thrown as far as the power conference thing is dead. Florida State was left out. They were 13-0. They come from a power conference, and if they can do that to them, they can do it to anybody. So a 12-0 or even 13-0 if you had a championship game of some sort. Washington State, do they even get that guaranteed whatever it is, fifth or sixth or fourth spot? I think that's really everybody's fighting for that one access, because everything behind those guaranteed slots aren't guaranteed, and we are seeing right now where they're going to be slighted and sort of evaluating moving forward. So the power conference thing, I think people need to drop. I think we need to start talking about the autonomous stuff. And then obviously the autonomous stuff has to do with all the legal requirements and the lawsuits. And it's just it's an absolute morass and a disaster to try to manage. Moen, you have a comment or question?
Yeah. 2026, where do you see your Washington State Cougars and the Oregon State Beavers?
My 51-49 prediction would be that they have rebuilt. There's going to be the Pac something that has a bunch of teams from the West in it. When I say West, I mean, depending on where you're sitting, that might mean Texas.
Right.
We don't think of that as the West so much. I think that they want to keep it regional. I mean, I think ultimately what Washington State and Oregon State have to think long-term future, setting up for that next round, is what's life going to be like with about 15 million a year, in terms of revenue distribution and everything else that goes along with it. So I think that if I were to target what's going to happen in 2026, I'm going to say whatever we can afford on a $15 million a year media distribution kind of deal. And to me, that's probably not. The 49 is not the Big 12. More than likely, it's going to be Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Fresno State, UNLV, San Diego State, maybe like a Tulane, Memphis. We'll see if that's something that that is probably my prediction if that were to happen long term. But it's hard to know. If it is $420 million and right now they just want to spend it all, then that could change. But then I'll say this, 2026 and 2031, those might be completely different things when it comes
Exactly
to
right.
where I think we'll end up. So.
Yeah, and those negotiations, what you're talking about, the Big 10 has to renegotiate again. The Big 12 is going to renegotiate again. The SEC does it, I think, in 2032, and then the ACC is just out there forever. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot that people are they pulled out their Ouija boards. Everybody's trying to guess where everybody's going to end up, but at the end of the day, Yormark said this in the summer. He said they might just flip the table over and start over. We might have a completely different, and so that's why when I'm talking about some of these sort of out there ideas, these ideas about throwing these conferences together, the best one that I think would have legs if they could get around the academic restrictions, which I'm not sure how that's possible, but say the academics weren't part of this, would be to bring in like a PIF fund out of Saudi Arabia or something like that, that would come in and basically buy college football. And don't worry about conferences anymore, and they'll do exactly what you're talking about. Regional scheduling, they'll put teams together that is much easier for people to afford for travel, and turn the whole thing upside down. Can you even imagine that happening? The reason I'm asking you specifically is you work for the university, right? In one shape, you're invested in the sports program, and to have to deal with all of the academics, which is a real thing. And I know we made fun of the Pac-12, chancellors and presidents for a year because how they kept saying academics and academic, but it is a thing. So do you think there's any way that they could separate the one from the other?
Are you talking about athletics from academics?
Well, in some way, be able to hold their nose, cash checks, but not have the current control they do, which is pretty much unlimited.
Yeah, I mean, in terms, this is a whole new world, but I haven't seen a really thoughtful analysis of what it does to things like Title IX. I mean, that's federal law right there. And so if you were to take the Chip Kelly idea and pull football out and make it its own dependent athletic, I mean, we're talking about professional football at this point, right? I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. It's not student athlete, it's football players, and then all the other sports are student athletes, sure. And, some of that's not terribly reliable anyway. I've had student athletes. By the way, I want to give a shout out. DJ Rodman, he was an excellent student. He was one of mine now at USC playing basketball.
I love it.
DJ, for watching. So I don't want to disparage, all these athletes out there that want to be students. Some of them are great students. And I mean, there's just so much red tape that has already existed in terms of making sure that they are students in good standing so that they can play sports.
Right.
And I don't know. This is part of the overcorrection. I don't know how far we can go before it's like, oh my God, we're violating like 50 federal laws that we put in place to make sure that the marriage of these students and athletes is a thing that happens here. And so, I mean, this is, like I said, we're moving more toward professional sports with unlimited free agency. I think the recorrection has to be that still has to be a student athlete thing. We still need to maybe put some long-term contracts in front of these people. I'm not an athlete. My first job, I got paid $10 an hour. And
wow, you got more than I was. $3.35. So
well, I was a nightly news anchor, so
hey, they make no money.
That was the big money there. But I signed a 3-year contract. That's what contracts are. You want to give me money, I'm going to give you a certain amount of time. Right. And so ultimately, I think that we need to see, in terms of that recorrection, that commitment to the university, at least. If we're going to make a professional league but act like it's student athletes, then let's make them commit long term to being students as well. I don't know. That's the professor in me. I'm probably not like most people who you'll have on who are professors. I'm a sports fan, so I'm talking mostly in those terms.
And that's why we like you, Matt. That's why I one of these days when I come back home, I'm going to drive to Pullman and we're going to meet. Or you going to come to BYU? You've come down for a basketball game or something. I'd love to meet you.
Like my wife's from Utah. I mean, Ogden. Just
very good. Okay.
Hour and a half north of you there.
Yeah, no, it's like a half hour. Yeah, 45 minutes. I can get there. Anyway, here's we have a super chat from Devil Frog, who was, I will say, the guy who gave me the original name for Big 12 Mafia. So he's an OG, as OG as you can get. So Devil Frog says, use the Oregon Washington State money to invest in the Big 12 NIL for Big 12 Player of the Year and Conference Championship Game Player of the Games for the Big 3 sports. In other words, use those as enticements for kids to come and play in the league. They will get rewards like this. What do you think about that?
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, we're using the money that from those Pac-12 assets if we join the league in order to pay for the Player of the Year Conference Championship Player of the Game. And that's interesting too. I think that in terms of suggestions, I'll take as many as I can. I have no idea if any of them are realistic or feasible, but that's an interesting one as well.
I've never seen that, Devil. That's the first time I've seen that.
Yep.
Moen or Immaculate, you guys want to comment on that before?
It's an interesting thought. I'm not quite sure what to even make of that in terms of I mean, I think that's the general. I mean, he's taken a very descriptive direction on a general idea that somehow the Pac-12 money comes over and uses that. For me, those schools, those Pac-10 schools that are going outwards, like if this the House versus NCAA hits, they're kind of bringing their liability on that to their other conferences. So I think now in this situation as it is, it might help the Big 12 if they pull those last two, because then now all that money can get distributed and the incoming schools will have something that they bring to the table to the Big 12. Whereas now, money that they thought was coming to them is not coming to them. So they're a little more needy to their future conferences. So that's my take on it, is that with so much coming up in the future, I think planned on money is no longer there. So that we'll see how that goes. But it's a interesting idea on how they could possibly do that.
Well, and I'll sort of plant this thought to anybody sort of curious about what Wazoo and Oregon State might do with the money in terms of the treating everybody else fairly. It's been 3-4 months now that the two schools have fought to keep the conference alive. What would it be in terms of legal terms if they decided now with control to dissolve it, take everything, and pay for the Big 12 conference championship game, player of the game?
Right.
Now, I think all of that, you have to start thinking about, okay, we can't just destroy the conference now that we have the money. I don't know if that would be a legal hurdle. The word fair, like I said, is very subjective. So maybe they go, well, now it's fair. We decided what to do now that everybody left. But what would you think if you were University of Washington or University of Oregon? You just lost in Superior Court. You lost again in the Supreme Court. And then they took everything and destroyed the conference anyway. I think that's probably not, if I were predicting, a very likely outcome, at least after all of what's happened.
Wouldn't that be cutting off your nose to spite your face? Because then nobody's going to want to work with you. It's the collegiate world, and these administrators, it's a whole different universe, isn't it? The way they communicate, the stuff they talk about is so above sports. I can't imagine that they would want to go slash and burn like that.
They'd probably be beelining to that court, that's Superior Court in Washington, saying, put a stay on this as soon as possible, because they'd probably say this is harmful.
Yeah, I just don't even think they would do. I don't think they want to work with people. They want to be in a conference. If you're in an interview for a job and somebody says, love to have you at the job, but wait a second, you just wrote a really negative review on Yelp that killed our business. No, I'm not going to be bringing you on board. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think it is in their best interest to manage the money well, though. I don't think it makes any sense to just say, you'll start doing anything and flailing around with it, right? You would agree with that, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely agree with it. I don't have much more to add to it.
Okay.
Otherwise, just sort of talking in circles. But yeah, I think that the full intention is to keep the Pac-2 and figure out a way to rebuild the conference, make it profitable, and then position themselves for the next thing.
I think that's pretty good. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, I think that's a good. The way things are going, when we first started talking about this, I kind of worried about this for Washington State and Oregon State. But now with so many court cases in the future, and the future is just so up in the air and not knowing where everything's going to be, it might not be such a horrible place to be in a much more regional grouping. Yeah, you may not be making as much money on the network stuff, but in terms of costs, I don't know. And in terms of like them splitting back up, all coming together and splitting back out from a Big Ten perspective, I have a hard time seeing that happening. I know, I think a lot of people are kind of wishing for what we just left, and understandably so. But I don't necessarily think you're in a bad spot when you're looking at some of these PAC schools and the new costs that they're going to have. And then with all of these rulings coming in, you guys might actually be in a good spot just to kind of sit pretty right now. When you got, like you said, you got 2 years. So that's what I was kind of curious about. I was just curious about like the morale and the mood with like Washington State leadership, or maybe even Oregon State leadership. Like, are they feeling pretty good about where they're sitting? Like maybe more than people might realize?
Yeah, I think leadership in terms of like Jayathi Murthy at Oregon State and Kirk Schultz at Washington State feel real good about being able to position themselves. I might have said it last time, but whenever we have meetings, the athletic director here, Pat Chun, he'll sort of be the bad cop and go, but Kirk, just so everybody knows here, it's going to be worse. He doesn't exactly say that, but I think there's some level-headedness. There's an understanding that this is a step down in terms of budget. Happy to keep whatever coaches we have right now until we can't afford them anymore, and whatever the next round of it will be. I think overall the vibe is more positive. Early on in this process, I got some inklings that we might have some legal backbone here. And I sort of put a tweet out to my universe and said, hey, I think we not be excited, but I think there are things that we should be happy about in this situation. And everybody's real mad that I suggested that we be optimistic. And so the fallout from that is, months later, we've accepted our reality. Okay. And so any victory, especially when it comes to the courts being so definitive and so quick to say, yep, not even going to review this thing. That's how you governed. This was what it was. Superior Court got it right. And good luck to you all. We feel real good about that. Ultimately it is. It not only at first was it losing a conference, just losing all leverage, all power, all opportunity at the same time. That was devastating in August. Everybody was writing our eulogy. We ain't dead. And, I think that that's probably the best news we've had in a long time, is that there are signs of life. And then I think the other thing is that now all those people who are mad at me for saying, have a little optimism, we're going to be a good football team. And hopefully that when everything changes again, things will be better. I think we're all seeing now, nobody is happy. Is anybody happy about the system as it is right now? I don't know that anybody is, other than the richest.
Alabama is.
Right. Alabama. Right.
Ohio State.
That's a whole other.
But I would say the most happy would be Vanderbilt and Purdue and Illinois. They're the ones that are the most happy, right? So that's why some of those big ideas of throwing everybody together and slicing it up, there's so many complications to that, maybe in 50 years. But you mentioned Charlie Baker, who's I'm glad you met him. I think that's fantastic. I'm sure in person he's a nice guy, but he keeps going back and forth with Rick Scott, the senator from Florida. I haven't DM'd you. I know. I DM'd you the link for what I'm going to share with you. This just came out yesterday. Was it yesterday, Immaculate?
Yeah.
And I caught it, and I held my breath. I could not believe he would be so direct, and it's in the public eye. So I'm going to bring this up here. I hope you can see it. It's going to be tough. Let me see if I can get it any bigger. Let me go back here.
It's tough to get it on that.
Yeah, it's hard. I'll just read it to you, okay? And then you can share the link. I'm going to put the link down here for everybody. You guys can follow along. I posted it there in the comments section. Everybody click on that. We're going to do a little read with me today.
That's the senator's letter back to.
It's a reply back.
Yeah, so, after they basically got snubbed by the CFP and Hancock.
Right. So let's set the table. Florida State gets left out. Rick Scott writes a letter and says, I want all your conversations. I want everything you wrote down, talked about, Twittered. I don't care what you did, communicated to leave Florida State out, and I want all those documents. And you guys should turn them over. Bill Hancock replied and basically said, thanks for playing. We'll pat you on the head and kick him down the road. Really did not treat him like a senator, certainly. So this is Bill Hancock's reply. And I'm just going to read a few sentences here. And I apologize, it's so small. I don't know how to make these bigger. But it basically says, I could read the whole thing. It's so crazy. He says, I appreciate your response on December 15th to my letter, Unfortunately, your response failed to answer all 10 questions I posed in my initial letter. Although I'm sure you are incredibly busy this time of year, I am once again asking that you take the necessary time to provide transparency behind your selection process. Then I'm going to drop to the second, and this is where it starts getting good, the second paragraph. In your response, you thanked me for writing to you about college football. I'm troubled by your oversimplification of the problem at hand. The work you and the selection committee do has implications that stretch far beyond the football fields or athletic departments of our nation's universities. This is bigger than just college football. And then he basically says, I told you exactly what I wanted. I haven't received it yet. In the fourth paragraph, he says, to provide needed transparency and restore confidence in your organization, I again request that you immediately respond to this letter with the following information. And then he details the information. All 10 of his points, which he says were not answered, are mentioned here. Listing step and ranking step of the voting and where the votes went back and forth. And anyway,
it's a lot of
those
he wanted to know a
details.
lot of emails and texts from like ESPN and SEC.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it was just like, whoa, you're digging pretty deep here.
That's
It's
a public
basically
records request. That's
It
going to
is.
take
It's
a
a
while.
freedom of information request.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And then I love his parting words here. He says, "Finally, please know that no matter how busy things are in Washington, I will never stop fighting for Florida families. Yay, America! Our students and our universities, I sincerely hope that you will take this opportunity to choose transparency and salvage." This is the best part. Salvage the integrity of the important organization you represent. So, I mean, could you get more direct? Could you be less gray? I'm just how much farther down this rabbit hole can we go before these guys have to answer questions?
Yeah, I think when you're, I mean, to Rick Scott's point, I think when you're toying with this much money and this much impact on a decision like that, I think he's making an argument a lot of us want to make is just be open with the process. What exactly just made you decide to leave out an undefeated power conference program
Right.
in lieu of a different one? It's so frustrating because the system's already designed to be screwed up. You got 4 teams for 5 power conferences. It's just
Right.
by design, it's flawed. And so that in and of itself is a problem. Not as many are. I mean, people are going to complain about the 13th place team next year. It's just we're all going to go. You're going to be so frustrated. Okay, sorry, 9-3 Oklahoma. You were just right on the outside looking in. Sorry
Right.
about that. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Jason Spangler it gets sarcastic. He says no one has to answer to Rick Scott, and that's true. Rick Scott's a senator. He doesn't carry any legislative. He's not a lawyer, judge or anything. But what he's basically asking is the questions that everybody else has been asking since it happened. And this cloak of secrecy is, at this point, I think, is now a negative for the entire college football playoff. I don't think going to 12 teams is going to fix it either. I think they're going to have to jump in 26 to 16 and maybe even 24.
I think the argument's viable to Washington State in terms of next year when we have this, you're either going to have 5 or 6 auto bids. And what's going to be the process then of deciding, say, like if it's 5 plus 7, who's going to get that 5th spot? If there's only 4 power conferences, if Washington State or Oregon State wins this going in, like how would they get that? Say if you merged with the Mountain West, or what are the rankings for you guys making it into the 7? So I just kind of looking at the situation as we go into the 12. I think that's very important for a lot of schools to know, because this kind of shook everyone's belief in the CFP system that you can earn your way in. Because I mean, are they going to take you guys, or are they going to take someone who might get more viewership? I mean, it's.
Well, caveat to Washington State, they actually get good numbers.
I know, but if it was like they're 10-2 and there's an LSU at 9-3, or I mean, you got good numbers, better than most people realized. But there are those with more, just like Alabama's more than FSU.
Well, I'll even bring up the Gardner Minshew year, which, man, he was our savior in 2018, sort of bringing a lot of relevance. I mean, in the middle of the Mike Leach tenure, there was relevance there already. But when he showed up, WSU was 10-2 and was ranked before they made the New Year's 6 selections 13th, behind a number of 9-3 teams. We were behind 9-3 Penn State that year.
Yeah.
I think we were behind a 9-3 Oklahoma. I have to remember what the other one was, but that, your point, Immaculate, that already exists. And we certainly, I mean, our saying for years has been Cougs versus everybody. That's on all of our banners now. It's Cougs versus everybody. We're just in this sort of forgotten place down here. So it puts a chip on our shoulder. We already know that exists. And we were yelling about it then. That was a super exciting team with a super charismatic quarterback. And for some reason, even then, we couldn't get in there over teams that didn't win as much as we did. And so that was disappointing. We should have been in a Fiesta Bowl. Instead, we smacked Iowa State in an Alamo Bowl, which was fine. We finished top 10 in the country.
Hey,
and yeah.
We like smacking Iowa State around every once in a while, too.
Yeah,
It's okay.
right. Exactly.
All right. Hey, Matt, you have been fantastic. We could keep you here for 3 hours, but we don't want to do that. Really appreciate you coming on. Why don't you tell everybody what you do and why you're so passionate about this thing for the Pac-2 right now, and then we'll sign you out of here.
Yeah, I mean, my quick hitter is, so I'm a professor at Washington State University. I teach journalism, but I come to the university from a career covering sports. It was funny to hear you talk about University of Illinois. I covered Illini sports for 7.5 years. Some of the leanest years in the football and men's basketball programs for Illinois there for a while. But, in terms of covering this case, I want everybody to know, I'm on your show. I report on this for free. I don't have a Substack to subscribe to. I'm not a paid journalist. I'm just interested. And mostly I'm interested in making sure that the people who follow me know what's going on. And I don't like a lack of information, but I hate misinformation. And so whenever I see somebody try to speculate, I make a phone call and try to get what's real. And so I'll clarify it. I had to do a lot of that ahead of the schedule release a couple of weeks ago. And that's part of the reason why I'm happy to use my free time just to follow this court case. I'll read 120 pages of a ruling in Superior Court just to make sure that people aren't operating with bad information out there. So that's why I'm here. That's why I think a lot of people have sort of found what I've put out there. I don't offer a whole lot of any opinion or a whole lot of analysis.
Right.
I just want the information to be accurate, and hopefully the people get a little bit of insight in terms of, I guess, some of the processes that come from me.
Really quick, there was a question, a super chat I neglected to catch. Sorry, Daniel Gygax. He asks, do you have an estimate for what the Pac-12 studios might be worth? Bob Thompson said they could sell it off for parts, and it might be 10 million total. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry, Daniel, I don't have an answer for that question, because I'm not sure what we're talking value here. I mean, when we talk value, we're talking about literal cost of the building and paying off leases and things like that. I think the lease is somewhere between $1.5–2 million on it or something like that. So you could sell that building. San Francisco, property values, or San Ramon, I forget exactly what the address is for that new studio, and it is a new studio. So yeah, my guess is that they will sell it, but I just don't know what that value is. So sorry.
No, that's okay. That's what we do here. We talk about it.
Yep.
Hey, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. We will do this again. I'm not going to let you drift off. So if you ever need anything from us, make sure you hit me up. If you need to get something out, I'm happy to contribute. Anything we can do to help you.
Right,
but we really appreciate you coming on. And I'm still looking for that Washington State hat.
Yeah, you got to give me where do I send it? I need an address here.
Oh, I didn't give you my address.
I've got gear coming out the ears here, man.
Okay, I didn't. I'm dumb on me. I thought I'd given it to you. I will do that. Oh, thank you so much. Mo and Immaculate, anything else before we let them go?
What's in the cage?
Nice. I was wondering that earlier.
It is a hamster. His name's Brownie. We got him the day the previous hamster died in the family. So, we're just recycling animals from the pet store. Shout out to Pets Are People Too in Pullman. Yep.
Have your kids make a little sign you can hang above it. Says this is. So next time you're on, everybody knows.
Yep.
All right. Have a great night. If we don't talk before the new year, happy holidays and stay safe.
All right. Happy holidays, gentlemen.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you
Matt.
later, Matt. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
All right. Wow.
Now
guys.
for the crazy talk to start. Here we go.
First of all, thanks again to Matt for that.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
almost an hour. And I know we did a little of that talking, but I would.
He was going pretty good.
He was going pretty good. Any thoughts you guys have coming out of that interview?
I don't know what you got, Moen.
I think it's the holiday season. It's the giving season. Matt was very giving to us.
Yeah.
In his opinions. and I think we should give away some more memberships.
All right, let's do
Ooh.
that. Do you want me to click
Nice
this
segue.
one that we did before? You want to do another one?
We will do another one.
Oh my
And
gosh. Ding, ding, ding. We're clapping, putting up bells. So here we go. Big 12 Mafia gifts. And tell everybody how they get those gifts there.
just click on it in the chat right there and opt in to receive the gifted memberships. That's all you got to do, guys. Won't charge you or anything like that. After 30 days, it expires. We would hope that you would renew. We've got a lot of great features on the new members area. We're going to have members exclusive polls. Members will get to see videos a little sooner. More emotes that we have. You get new loyalty badges that scale up with as long as you're a member. From first month, second month, 6th month, 12th month, and onward and upward. So definitely some cool stuff we have going on here. Happy holidays to everybody. We hope everybody enjoyed the gifted memberships. And
Nice. Moen has got the reins.
Daniel
Well,
Gygax
he's
got a
doing some fun
membership.
stuff.
BR7062 got a membership.
VR got one too.
Awesome
Do you get
Lawson
report?
Clips. Dallas Marquez got one. Cougar Tail got one. That's all you got to do is just be here with us in the chat. And you never know. We might drop another member bomb. Somebody might be generous and drop a member bomb. If you're interested in donating memberships, just click on the cash button. You now have an option to gift memberships here at the Big 12 Mafia Network.
Wow, that is so cool. Immaculate, what do you want to say about that?
I'm happy to see some folks again. I'm really enjoying seeing Moen put some time into this, and he's got some new emotes up there for folks. Just kind of fun things for people to do. I'm a chat guy. I'm all about making it fun for folks in chat. So this is really good to see, and I'm happy to see it.
As we get going, and it's like amazing that we've got this growing group, right? We've averaged 50 people on YouTube tonight, and then I was watching Twitter, and then I started chatting with Matt and forgot to go back to it. Give me a second. We've had a very active people have been watching. Anywhere from 3 to 20 people have been watching on Twitter as well. So if you don't find us here, you can find us on Twitter. I'm going to put our names back down so everybody can see how to contact us. We've got so many people that are joining the group. Follow us on Twitter, will you? That's where we do a bunch of our news drops. Pretty soon we're going to be doing member exclusive news drops. And we just want to encourage everybody to be a part of the family. This means a lot to us. We give a lot of time to this. If you follow us on Twitter, you know how much time we put into this. But we're doing it for you, and we want to grow this bigger. We are going to be doing new opportunities for content, and yeah, just subscribe, become a paying member. I'm going to do the paying member video so everybody can see how to do that again, since we're at the top of the hour. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
Become a member of Big 12 Mafia by going to our homepage and hitting the join button located next to the subscribe button in the upper right corner. There are several membership levels to choose from.
And that was put together by Moen, by the way. I really appreciate you doing that, Moen. That's really fantastic.
Right. And I would just bring up, if anybody's watching on demand, if you go to that join section, you can opt in to receive a gifted membership. Just for the people who watch us after the fact, you don't have to be here in the chat to actually get it. Just go there, click on join. You can select the option to opt in for gifted memberships for this channel.
That is awesome, and I am absolutely having one of the best days I've had in a long time, and you guys are part of that. So out of all that, we just got done talking to Matt Loveless, Washington State professor of journalism, and he also works for the athletic department in broadcasting. He does, like, I believe it's women's volleyball or basketball broadcast. But and if I'm wrong on that, Matt, you can correct me if I said that wrong, Matt. I'm dredging that up in my gray matter. I might have got that wrong, but I know that he cares very much about the success of Washington State, by extension, the people that we care about for Oregon State and the Pac-2 and the legal stuff. So let's wrap that up. Let's finish talking about that so we can talk about Florida State and a little of the ACC and maybe some realignment stuff on the East Coast. Is there anything else you guys want to add to the conversation that we've had and has been ongoing about the Pac-2?
Whew, it's really kind of hard to know at this point in time. I think it's very interesting that now they're free and clear of the lawsuit. So we'll see if that means anything at all. It may not. It's interesting to see now. What I'm seeing from people is a little bit of a change in what they're saying. You've got this idea that the Pac-2 is now involved in these overarching talks. I see it from people in chat. Some people are like, hey, bring them in, bring in their money. I still stand that the schools that are leaving to go join other conferences would have planned for having some of this money. And not having that money means it's going to have to come from somewhere else. I mean, they don't just take this money and stick it in a trust fund somewhere or in a savings account. I mean, they plan for it in advance. So this, by holding on to this and not even paying themselves out, they might be creating a different kind of need for them, if you know what I mean. Like it frees up money for the schools that are leaving there, so that way they're not a debit for their new conferences, if that makes any sense.
It's absolutely, it makes sense. How about you, Moen?
Yeah, I think everybody's got a soft spot for Oregon State and Washington State. Everybody hates what happened to them. I hate the idea of them having to buy their way into a A4 conference. I think that's ridiculous. I really hope they don't go that route. I think their best bet now is just to sit back and wait. See what happens in the ACC, see if the Big 12 expands more. If not, hold on to as much of that money as you can and reform that pack.
The strength that the two schools have together and being unified, I cannot stress enough how important that is. Part of the reason the Pac-12 fell apart is because you had too many people on the edges not working together. If they had actually had a committed Oregon and Washington, that conference should have been reconstituted last September. That's bottom line. Absolutely flat out, that's a fact. But because of the equivocation of those two schools, and then everybody else hoping they could catch the ride with them, it caused all this chaos. That's the reason we're where we are today. We would be in a different world, and Bob Thompson told us this. If they had just signed the deal, the Pac-12 would be strong, the Big 12 would be strong, and the ACC wouldn't be on its last legs. But they didn't do that, and now you jump ahead, and we're in a pretty crazy place if you think about it.
I think a lot of this might have been a foregone conclusion, but I think the way that it broke down, there's no way to really predict that. Just like I don't think anyone, I mean, besides, some of us, I honestly thought that Oregon State and Washington State were going to win that case. But I think most people thought that, power wins, money wins, the bigger schools would win. This is in Washington. University of Washington is going to have all the political power. I think everyone was thrown off that that's not what happened. So I think people are now kind of going through a change of understanding, right? Like the same thing happened when the pack broke up. People had to readjust and their worldview of how all this works. And I think that's happening again after the Supreme Court decision. Like the Washington and the rest of them, they haven't even put out an announcement or a statement, or they might have fired their legal team for all we know.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of readjusting right now going on, and we just don't know where that's going to lead. But it could lead in a direction that most people would have thought was impossible before they won this court case. So that's really where I'm sitting right now, is just trying to get a feel for where people might be. I'm even seeing in chat, there's a lot of people talking in chat about, maybe we should bring them in. And it's real, man. House versus NCAA and all these other court cases, they are absolute game changers.
I completely agree with you. Before we get to the next topic, which Shonsky has put the comment and question most people have been asking me on Twitter, what's going on with TKO and all of that. We'll answer that question in just a second, but I want to do a quick update. Let me get the hide current comment off there on the Bowl Pick'em, the Big 12 Mafia Bowl Pick'em. I hope everybody signed up for that. If you didn't, I'm sorry. It's been a lot of fun. There's been 8 games, and I am exactly in 50%. So that's not the greatest. Let me bring up, and so everybody can see it. Let me go here. So basically, the status of the picks, and I'm going to post the link in case you want to just take a look at it and kind of see where everybody's at. The point of this that is interesting is not just wins and losses. It's the number of teams. The number of points that you get. And I do my picks in reverse order, meaning the last games usually get the most points for me. That's what I've always done. I told everybody this has been a thing I've done with my family for more than 40 years. But outside of me, which is 4-4, so I have not been doing great, but I'm doing all right with the percentage which is 97-1, third place. And the reason I'm in third place is because I had the most points on those games. So at the end of this thing, it's not about really how many points you win. It's more about how many points you lose. Which basically means the same thing. So let's quickly run through. And I apologize again to everybody. I don't know if somebody knows a better way besides scroll lock to get pictures on my monitor to get bigger. In other words, magnify. Please let me know how that is, because I've tried all the Windows tricks I can think of, and I can't get it any bigger than this. I'll try again. It keeps blinking. Anyway, so Mizzou fan is right now, after 8 games, sitting at a 99.2%. Basically, he's missed 1 game.
Yeah, he's smoking.
ESPN fan picks 1 is 7-1. Let me sort by win loss. It won't. That's kind of stupid. All right. Then me, but I'm not in it. FL Legend is 7-1. G Brew is 5-3. Jayhawk John is 6-2. I'm just going to go. Let me see. How many people did we end up getting? 30 people. So I'm not going to go through everybody, but I'll go through the top 10. Kenneth is 5-3. I am Spartacus is 7-1. Cal 30 is 4-4, and James Hester Pickham is 5-3. So, and as you go down here, you'll notice Big 12 Brandon, who I've really enjoyed engaging on our show here and on Twitter. He's 7-1, but he didn't bet any points. So that's why he's so far down, is that he just didn't wager as many points as the people above them. But there is a negative side to doing that too. It also means that you might win and have a high percentage going into the halfway point, but by the end you're way far down because you've lost more points than you won. So don't worry about the win-loss. Don't worry about these points, but they will change. Moen is at 13. I guess I'm lying. I'm going down farther. Where are you at on here?
You don't want to find me. I forgot to change up my points, so
right.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be pretty low because everything I'm betting on right now is real low.
So what does everybody think about Wild Dude?
I'm not even on this page.
Wild Dude is undefeated. I think he's the only undefeated person, but he did not change his points.
I think Casting for Chrome is saying he's undefeated.
Did you guys see another undefeated?
Well, there's more pages. You're only
is there?
Page 1.
Oh, wow. Okay, man. Okay, I apologize to everybody. I didn't realize there were 2 pages.
Now, unfortunately, you're going to see mine.
Let's see. Victor Von Doom is 5-3. Jet 50 tips. Oh, Jet, that is Casting for Chrome. 8-0, certainly. That's really good. So when we do this next year, you guys don't know how you're actually supposed to wage. I didn't tell anybody my secret wagering tactic because I wanted to actually do okay without winning, but it doesn't matter. This Bomber's Wife's picks was an extra I logged in trying to test. That's actually not anything.
You're such a cheater. You're like, I'm going to get first and second place and not have to pay anyone out.
I wish. So anyways, we want to thank everybody for being part of this. We are going to send out some prizes. We haven't decided exactly what those prizes are going to be yet. I do have one sponsored prize that I'm going to send out, but there will be 10 or 15 I'm going to send out towels to. I don't know. I haven't decided. Maybe it'll be 5 or 10. But I'll send out a Big 12 Mafia towel, rally towel. And we just want to keep you guys coming back, do more fun things. We're going to do this for the basketball tournament. We'll go through, everybody will do that, and we'll have prizes for that. So please give us your comments and let us know how we're doing. We haven't done the greatest job about asking for comments back, not because we didn't want them, just you get that stuff in your head and you're not really paying attention. Please send me a DM. Actually, send all 4 of us a DM, including you, and let us know what you think we can do better, or what maybe we're not covering enough, or if you think we've gone astray and we need to walk something back. I think it's been 5 or 6 times where I've admitted what I said was wrong on air. I don't hide my mistakes. I own those things up. So we want you guys to be more part of this. Mo and Immaculate, I want you guys to also let everybody know.
Moen just
I see that. Moen's dropping another. Moen Vision doing gifted 5 more memberships. Click on that gift, everybody. Click that gift so you can be a paying member for a month. And boy, these are rewards that you guys have earned. When did we start? Matt, let's see. It was late April when you and I first got together. So how many months is that? Is that like 9 months? I cannot believe how long that is.
It's getting up there.
It is. Uh-oh, we lost Mo, and he left after he gifted his stuff. Maybe his credit card rejected it.
So that's enough for you. Get out of here.
If you're just joining us and you're not a paying member of the show and you want to be a member, click on that gift icon that's there under the chat, and or is it at the top of the chat? I'm not looking at the one in YouTube. Can you tell me which one it's in? Is it at the top or the bottom? Immaculate, do you know? Where's the icon at for them to click the gift one, Moen?
It'll pop right at the top of chat.
It's at the top. Okay.
Right where it says I gifted the 5 memberships. If you just click on it, it'll opt you in. But I think everybody got awarded their memberships.
That is fantastic.
So now we have so many members. We're going to start putting some polls in the. They're going to be members only poll in the community tab. So if you just click on the community tab from our homepage, you will be able to vote on polls. So we're going to do some polls for things. We're going to do. We've talked about doing a poll for picking my outfit one time.
That's right.
We might do a poll for what I'm taking shots of. We'll see. We're gonna have lots of polls. So by all means, check in that community tab. Like I said, we've got a lot of different things coming around the bend, guys. We're gonna do some exclusive videos. I got this great name, If the U Fits.
Which I love, by the way.
We're gonna have Wild Ute doing some analytics to decide what universities belong where and if they fit in. So, and obviously we're gonna keep doing the show. I think we're gonna move to Sundays. On Sundays at 8 is gonna be the Moen After Dark show weekly with myself and Immaculate, and that show we're gonna focus more on just engaging with you guys in chat, speculating on realignment, talking about all the other college football news items of the week. So,
and that's how we've set this up. If I'm going to take a minute and let everybody know this is all by design, and it was designed in my head. But the idea is you get a gang of really smart people together that all have multiple things in common that are really good to talk to and people like to watch and engage with. On top of that, you expand it to start doing featured type shows. Moen After Dark is one of them. The Holy Rivals is not dead. It's just sitting there waiting for us to do something else with it. So this is really important that everybody knows we're not a fly-by-night thing. We're not going away. As far as I'm concerned, I'm old. I got nothing else to do with my time. I'm going to be here a while, and I hope Mo and Immaculate are with me.
It's kind of like setting up a network, and I know a lot of people when you go onto YouTube, you got to have look at this channel and then that channel, and kind of the idea here is one channel, and you come on here and you can get multiple different things on multiple different days. So it's kind of, I'm real happy to see it, and I know Moen's real stepping up here, and between the two of these guys putting their heads together and figuring all this out.
Summit Hawk with the 5 gifted membership.
Summit Hawk coming in. I love it.
He gifted me.
It's been a minute, Summit. I'm so glad you're here. If you weren't here at the beginning, do that again. I was talking. If you weren't here at the beginning, we had Matt Loveless, who works for Washington State University. We talked in the first hour, we talked all about the Pac-2 and legal ramifications of that. I encourage you or anybody else that's joined the channel just in the last few minutes, go back and watch the beginning of the show. The first hour is priceless. Seriously, in my top 5, one of the best guests we've ever had on.
Someone had a question. I don't know if you saw Sergeant Pickles. Yeah, that's a question.
I didn't. What is it? Tell me what it is.
Says, you guys doing a signing day recap show? I figure that's kind of pertinent to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, so we are going to do signing day tomorrow, right?
There you
We're
go.
going to talk about as many stories as you guys want us to cover. We're going to try to cover by school. We're not going to do a rundown of all 65, I would say top tier football schools, but we'll cover Iowa, we'll cover Ohio State, we'll cover BYU, we'll cover Utah, we'll cover the Big 10 and the Big 12, and then we'll cover everybody else as it works. Now, I really am interested in Washington State, obviously. And one of the questions I wanted to ask Matt, but we didn't get to, is I'm seeing that Oregon State is still recruiting at a tip-top level, guys. They're still getting 4-star transfers. They're not having everybody and their dog leaving their school. Now, I don't know so much about Washington State, unfortunately, because I guess maybe I follow the wrong people, but their news is not as current. But, I mean, that's an open question. What do you think about that, you guys? What does that say about Oregon State?
Probably says that when you go and you visit, you're going to get yourself one hell of a good feeling there. They seem to have an energy, a vibe, whatever you want to call it, that I think when you show up there, you feel that. And, they lost guys, and there might have been some bigger names that they didn't get. But I think when you're that young and you're going somewhere, you're looking for somewhere where you want to feel good about it. You want to be there. And maybe some of them aren't thinking so much about, like, what's this school's future? You're just looking for an opportunity in a place that you want to be. And, it's a great school. It's growing, good location. So I'm not surprised that they're still able to. And, those students who are going on those trips there are probably finding out more about what the potential future for Oregon State and Washington State is than what we know.
Exactly.
I mean, that's always been a resource. Is once these recruits go there and they make their decisions and they come back home, people start to ask questions like, what did you hear? And that's where little tidbits about realignment stuff start to come out.
Completely agree. Moen, do you want to add anything to that?
I'm excited for got too much echo there. Hold on. There we go. I'm excited for.
We're not hearing an echo, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not hearing it. Fantastic. No. I'm excited to see who Miami signs to their class tomorrow with their $25 million NIL research money laundering scheme that they've got going on. Jeremiah Smith, who's our top recruit, he came out the other day and said that Miami has basically thrown more money at him than anybody else, but he is sticking with the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we'll see if that's the case. We've lost 2 recruits to him so far. 2 guys who've never played a snap of college football are both millionaires because they chose Miami.
It's immaculate. What do you think of that?
Well, we actually were talking about this kind of on the side a little bit, and I think that Miami had a lot of donors who are coming forward to help with the possible stadium.
Right.
And once that just kind of went to poo, they had a lot of money that was kind of put forward. And I think maybe some of that money was directed then over towards NIL. Because if they have that kind of money to throw at this, I don't know if that's sustainable. It might just be a spike. And so, make a play for it. Like I said, I still don't think that helps Miami at all in terms of Big Ten looking at them. That's a glaring issue of the stadium. But if you're the SEC, if you're Big 12 and you're looking at that, I mean, Miami might come out firing hard for the next couple of years if they're actually doing this, or it might blow up in their face. I mean, it's Miami. They do get talent there. That's not a new thing. It's just
it has to be something, though. We heard rumblings about Oregon pissing off the Big Ten, right? And yeah, they let them in, but that was only because they plugged their nose and let them come because the brand carried enough value to raise the conference up eventually. But
Fox
we know they burned bridges in the Big Ten. And I don't see, correct me if I'm wrong, Moen, aren't they doing the same thing now? Miami?
No, they stopped doing what
you say. Miami.
Oh, Miami, yeah, Miami is. They're just straight out buying players. They're buying every recruit they can. I was told they're looking at like a $25+ million NIL annually.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And you have other schools that are just getting into it, right? Can only afford so much. I'm warning all BYU fans. We know that there are billionaire founders out there of companies that could they could underwrite the entire athletic department down in Provo, but Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints members are cheap. They pay a 10% tithing, most, and they're very, what's the nice word? They're very frugal, maybe that's even kind. Very tight with money. So it's going to take BYU. I'm involved in one of the NILs, Cougar Connect. Let me pop up that. You guys, just since I'm talking about it, the QR code's there on the screen. Scan that QR code, and that'll take you to Cougar Connect. $10, and you find out a bunch of inside information, stuff that you'll never see for 1 or 2 days on regular Twitter. We get it 2 or 3 days early on Cougar Connect. But anyway, it's just getting started. We're going grassroots. If there's 450,000 active fans of BYU football, for instance, if you could even get 1% of that, you'd be at 5 million, right? So,
go ahead. Keep going. I was just going to say, you might find that things change for you once BYU's in a much more visible position, and
I agree.
And pride starts to come into it, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't want to use this term in a way that comes off as derogatory, but tribalism.
Oh, sure.
It's a real thing. And once you see that up there and you talked about, and you're up there in a conference, competing in the conference, BYU's been independent.
Yeah.
You never really had this mechanism to see how it affects your community. So I'd say give it 5 years and see this could change things quite a bit in your community.
And I think education is part of it. People don't know the top from bottom of NIL. There is a lot of disinformation about NIL. Some people think it's tax deductible. Others are saying it's not. Cougar Connect says it's not tax deductible. So you're going to have to, you pay your taxes on that. It's not going to be a write-off on April 15th every year. So, the education part of it is what I do. This is what I'm doing everything I can to encourage them. And that's where it's going to come in. And I agree with you. I think I said 3 to 5 years for a ramp up when BYU first got invited to the Big 12. It's just been 2 years later now, and I still think there's a lot of education to do. Really quick before we move on to the next topic, Summit Hawk, thank you so much for being our first non-panel gift membership giver. Thanks again, Summit Hawk. We really appreciate that. Five monthly gifts. Thank you so much. I won't forget, Summit. I won't forget. I promise. You will always be number one. Go ahead.
Can I point out one thing, since while we're still kind of talking about our new little network here and things we're going to do in the future? Jason Spangler in chat brought up something.
Oh, what did he say? I missed it.
NIL is good for two things: local Applebee's deals and EA Sports NCAA football. That's a little guilty pleasure of mine. Is the old EA Sports NCAA football back in the day, and I'm real interested to see that come out and how that looks. And I know
you're talking about the reintroduced
I'm
one.
talking about the video game, yeah. And I think that when this comes out, that's something that I'm probably going to want to talk about a bit on Sundays with Moen and maybe here with you guys if you want to. So, bringing that up, if anyone else is looking into that, understand someone on this show is also very much interested in that. I love the realignment options on the game and rearranging things. So, if anyone is thinking about that, I'll just let you know. Oh, yeah. There'll be some talk about that.
Here, Immaculate's offering up his PlayStation username so everybody can join him. When the game comes out, they can play in his fanciful league. I'm curious, since you brought it up, how many teams are in your tier 1 of college football? Not conferences, not how many teams are going to be in the Super League that you make?
Well, the way I'm going to do it is I'm hoping because it's no longer has NCAA on it. Like before, they had to follow NCAA rules, so they wouldn't let you delete a conference, and you couldn't take a conference below 6 schools because that was the rule at the time that you had to have 6. Now that would have to be 8. But F the NCAA, you're not part of this anymore. So hopefully we can delete conferences.
That would be cool.
But I'll probably go try to do it down the line of what I actually think will happen. I'm talking, 20. If there's a max of 20, we don't know. We're going to have the new playoff because it's going to be next year instead of, this year. So I'm going to try and do it as realistic as I can with that first one. And then, maybe we'll post those up. Like, this is what I created.
So you think 4 conferences of 20 teams?
Yeah, I'm going to try and do consolidation of the G5 too. I'm going to try and take that down to at least 4, maybe 3.
Are you going to have a sub competition for the G5 champion, and that's the one that goes in? Because I know you're going to do the conference semifinal and final championship games, right?
Just depends on what they allow us to do.
Okay, but that would be your dream if you could.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I think it'll probably be the situation where it'll be like a 7+ or a 5+7. I think that's going to probably pass. That's a really good question in terms of whether right now they're setting this up with the 6+6 because that's the current rule,
right?
And 5+7 hasn't passed, and so they may have to quick change that.
Right.
But yeah, that plays into it. And those are things that we're not going to be able to change. So if I go down to 4 conferences, well then, yeah, 1 G5 will get into that. It would be fun. I'm actually on Xbox, but if we set up a league of players and however that would work, that would be fun. Now, I don't know how many people are into that. A lot of folks kind of get out of that. And the last time we had that game was quite a few years ago. But in my opinion, it was one of my favorite action/strategy games because you had to strategize as a coach with your recruiting,
right?
And that changes per school with your state issues and who you're next to and all that. So that could be a lot of fun to do as a group. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm open to it.
I think it'd be fun to work. To follow you and track your progress. I'm happy to contribute ideas if you're looking for them.
Yeah, that's good.
Casting for Chrome. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to call dibs on Ohio State. I'm just letting
we're going to have to make up some rules about who gets what, and I don't know if we could. Might have to, like you're saying, whoever tier 1 teams are, we might have to cut that off.
Can you play on a computer? Because I can't control it.
Unfortunately, it's not going to release on PC.
You guys will have to enjoy it without me. I think I
don't know why they're doing that, but they're not releasing.
Because old people are the only ones that want to play games on computers. That's the reason. You want to play Warcraft, the original Warcraft, and Doom, and then they want to turn around and play college football, NCAA or whatever it is. Casting for Chrome's giving another free membership. Thank you. Casting for Chrome, again, one of the most loyal followers and parts of the family. We really appreciate that. This is a Big 12 Mafia family. We're talking a family. I'm very loyal. If you just do stuff for me, if you're active and you're actually giving advice and coming in and trying to be helping others in chat, these are things that as we grow, I'm really going to rely on some of you veterans to go in and do some, just let people know how everything works so that we're not always the ones doing that. Eventually, we're going to have moderators, and they'll be able to come in and they can help us, clean out bad chats and stuff like this. We're not there yet. In fact, we're quite a ways from that. But when we do, those jobs would go to the most active people. So I appreciate Casting for Chrome doing that. Thank you very much. Let's see.
Yeah, and I just want to add, if you receive a gifted membership from somebody, don't hesitate to say thank you to them in the chat. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. We appreciate them. I've got a sound drop I want to play.
Please.
$700 American dollars.
Oh, you need them other pages. That'll get him addendum 2 through 7 of the handout.
Here you go. You just place them all together in a big old line, like a big old long money choo-choo.
Money train, money train. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Cashy train.
What the hell is that?
It's Squidbillies. It's
okay.
A cartoon about hillbilly squids.
Okay, I have not heard of Squidbillies. That's very interesting. Hey, really quick, Moen, why don't you show off the new loyalty badges and the new emoticons that people can do?
Yeah. New loyalty badges are automatic, so the longer you're a member, the more your badge changes. Start off, we're doing clubs and diamonds and hearts. Start off at a bronze club. On your second month, you go up to a silver club. 6th month, you go up to a gold club. At the 1 year mark, you go up to a bronze diamond, and then silver diamond, and then gold diamond, and then finally gold heart and platinum heart. As far as the emotes, if you just click the emote button down here, you will see you now have a Big 12 Mafia show thing with the emotes. And right now we have 10. The more members we get, guys, the more emotes we can put in here. So right now I've got 10. You've got a rant emote. You've got a tinfoil hat. You've got the shot emote. You got a Big 12 emote. You got a Big 10 emote. You got an SEC emote. You got an ACC emote. You've got a Pac 2 emote.
I love it.
So we're going to have more emotes. Now that we've got more members, I think we've probably unlocked another 10 slots. So I will work on some of that. If anybody has any suggestions for emotes, by all means, let me know. We'll work on them.
I want to welcome back to the fold BR. He was the first paying member of my show outside of my parents who signed up to support me. But BR was the very first one. And I that will never change, BR. Just because you've dropped off that list and the continual thing doesn't mean I'm going to forget. So if you miss a month, don't worry about it, because I will remember, and you're going to be with us forever. Okay, a couple other announcements. The schedule for the next 2 weeks, and you guys correct me or tell me if you want to do something different, but we're going to do a show tomorrow night, and that one's going to be a little bit more centered on the what is it called? It's called
National Signing Day.
Signing Day, and we're going to do that tomorrow night. And then we're going to have a show Friday again, right? Are we doing a show Friday?
I think so. I thought it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Fridays going forward,
and
then
it's been
Moen's on Sunday, right?
On Sunday, yep. So Friday we'll have our show. It's been our Pick'em show, but we're turning it on other things now. Maybe we'll throw in some NFL playoff picks or something to make that interesting. And then on Sunday, you can catch the next iteration of the Big 12 Mafia presents Moen After Dark, and that'll be episode
you actually
5.
won't this Sunday, because this Sunday is Christmas Eve.
Okay.
I will be spending that with Mrs. Moen. So
I'd have to pass on that too if we were doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to do a Christmas show. I'm going to do a Christmas show somewhere in the early evening, after I take my nap in the morning. And I just want to get on and basically give thanks to everybody and let you guys know how much I have appreciated this last 8 months. Has been about the fastest I've had my entire life. And I cannot thank you guys enough for being here. Your loyalty, I very much appreciate. those that have been able to be paying members, all I can say is thank you. You're close to my heart, and we're doing everything we can to supply more stuff for you. We're also going to be going to a 2-tiered subscription system, right? Oh, it's 3. I thought
It's
we
still
decided
3.
on 2. Oh,
Nope.
okay. All right. So you want to tell everybody what that is?
Yeah, the lowest membership's at $2.99, and that's your soldier membership.
Okay.
And then at $4.99 is your wise guy membership, and then at $9.99 is your capo membership. And
Which
if you
is
just
the founder membership.
which is previously known as the founder membership.
Okay.
If you click on the join button, you can see all the different perks we're offering for each level. Everybody's going to have access to the loyalty badges and emojis.
Thank you so much to Moen and Immaculate. You guys have put in a ton of time on the back office part of this, and I really, really appreciate it. And we're, like I said, we're just going to get better. Really quick, since I jumped right into the interview with Matt, I want to do shouts out to the people that were first here. Casting for Chrome outside of Moen Vision, Casting for Chrome was second. And then we had Eugene was here. I'm not sure if he's still here, but Eugene, I didn't miss you. Let's see here. Raider Vision was in. BR was in. West Virginia WVU 26. I'm not sure that's familiar to me, but if you're new to the show and you're still watching, make sure you subscribe. Everybody, if you're new to the show, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter, and turn on your notifications. Can't say that enough. Let's see here. I know there was a few others I saw here. BR is in the house. That's when I started chatting him up. Daniel Gygax, who gave us a super chat earlier. Mr. Monkey says, I know we saw Sergeant Pickles. Let's see here. Who else? Dawn in Kansas is here. Let her rip. I love it. And I think we'll go to there. Kenneth Evans had a question that I'm going to answer about BYU. I'm not going to, this tonight isn't necessarily an all BYU show or anything, but we picked up a big commit, Sonny Tuala. Can't remember his 4. He's a high 3, lower 4, I think. Those I hate. I don't understand the rating systems, by the way, but he's in that tweener.
It's not a science.
But he is. He's a big get as a commitment. He can't sign the letter till tomorrow, but he put his announcement out on Twitter. So that's a big deal. If you're a BYU fan, look him up on Twitter. The guy's a stud. And I think that's as far as I'm going to go with announcements. We have covered some stuff, guys. Let's quickly review where we are with Florida State, ACC, and actually what we know, not rumor.
I just put the article in our little backroom chat there if you want to see it for the ESPN article that just came out.
I did see it. Let me look.
Most of what we all know, is probably nothing new in there. It's just interesting.
One about Rick. That's the letter I read.
No, it's in our backroom chat on for the show here on StreamYard.
I'm sorry, I was looking on. There it is. I didn't see that. Okay, I apologize.
It's just interesting to see ESPN putting out an article about FSU looking around. Most generally, people probably wouldn't think that they would want to put that out there, yet here it is. So
right.
It's made it, it's not just a tweet by someone from ESPN, it's an actual article, which means it's made it past editorial. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see that the ESPN is talking about FSU looking around.
Let me see if I can. It's not coming up. It's giving me trouble. I'll try it one more time. Okay, I think I got it. Sources say Florida State discussing future in ACC after a college football playoff snub. Let me bring that article up so everybody can see it. I will post the link so everybody can reference it, because that's what we do here. We don't do anything unattached. We always give credit. That's what we do here. I encourage everybody to become paying members of all these articles that are behind paywalls. If you can, it's important. We certainly try to do here. I think I've got 3 I'm signed up for, and there's probably 3 or 4 more we could be. Anyway, so do you want to really quick run through this then?
I haven't even really had a whole lot of chance to go through this.
Well, we can read through it right this second. Let's see. Florida State has had renewed in-depth discussions about its long-term future in the ACC. This is sources told ESPN, who, by the way, ESPN owns the ACC, with talks reigniting after the Seminoles' omission from college football playoff.
Yep.
That snub, which occurred after the Seminoles completed a season we know all about, angered many at the university among its board of trustees. Essentially, the last straw after a year spent voicing their displeasure in the conference. And if you've been a part of our show since May, but if you were in June and July, you would know we told everybody this. We weren't the only ones, but we were one of the few that was telling people how upset the Seminoles were, and we're looking for an out way back in July and August. Let's see. What do you want? I hear you breathing. Immaculate, do you want to say something on that?
No, that's just me being
okay
out of shape.
Okay.
I'm just kind of curious to see where this goes. I'm really interested to see why ESPN is putting this out there. Unless this is to kind of poo on it, which is, to be clear, is not leaving in the near term, but is merely weighing its options.
We have a new member. A new member has signed up. Moen, a new member. Sarge, Utah fan, member for 1 month.
Yeah, that's just him. He renewed his membership. So
okay, hey, that's just as good as doing a new one.
And now he's got the Silver Club because he's been here for 2 months. So
very good.
Congratulations on your Silver Club.
Shout out for Sarge. He's a Utah fan. I'm a BYU guy. It shows that we've been able to work through some things we disagree on, and we're still here. I hope you still like the show, Sarge. It's great to see you. Says Soldier Baby. Whoop whoop. So he's excited about that. Do we have a shout out for these member renewals? I love it. That works for me. Blaze Barstow is in here. I'm just seeing him sign in. He says, behind your name, if you're a member, you see this little icon right here? Besides changing the name on my display so I can manipulate chats or comments, it also leaves that comment or that little icon and then also changes to green. That's how I know who's a member and who isn't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I got another little update that you might want.
Please go ahead.
Someone responded to me on X.
Okay.
And that would be someone by the name of MHVER3.
Oh, great. What did he say?
And he says private equity can't own public institutions. They can own a stake in a conference, though.
Okay.
I'm wondering, how do they think that that's going to be reacted to by people if this was actually dealt with? Do you think people would like to hear about that?
I think maybe not tonight. We're almost 2 hours in.
But not tonight. Yes. It's just, I cringe a little bit at that idea, but that's maybe just kind of the old timer in me.
And let's finish on that, because that is really the problem. Is any of this private equity stuff that we're talking about? We're talking the Saudi Arabia fund. There's one in there's actually several there in the Middle East, and basically they're sovereign wealth funds. They're owned by the government, and they basically say you can buy a share of our country. That's what it is. That's where he gets the money, and then of course they have money in petroleum and other, probably weapons and who knows what else. But they can come in, and they've already bought athletic leagues. They bought this year. They bought PGA of America.
But here's the thing, though. If you're doing that, you're doing that as a way to have a return.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's taking money out of the payout system. And so what you're doing is somehow you have to be adding an input into the system of whatever we're doing, we're going to make this conference make more money.
Right.
In order to be worth taking that payout. And I wonder what could a group like that possibly do? I mean, an infusion of cash. Okay. Well, what do you spend that on in order to make the conference bring in more money?
They would have to create a holding company. They can't buy anything that's directly tied to I don't think they can buy anything that's directly tied to the individual schools because of antitrust issues, and there's some legal tax stuff that would put the school's legal standing in jeopardy. So they would create basically, you could say the NCAA would be a holding company, and they would basically come in, buy the organization, and then they would end up doing contracts probably through the media companies to engage with all these schools and basically say, we're going to buy college football, and this is what we want to do with it.
Well, even like what he's saying, though, he's saying that they can't deal with the schools, but they can deal with the conference because the conference is an entity. It's not a.
That's right.
But so my point is, okay, so you're investing in the conference. Well, what is the conference doing with that money to make the conference make more money? I don't. That's where I'm just not getting it. I don't.
What's the difference? Let me ask you a question, and I hope that this might make it more muddy. And I apologize, Immaculate. I'm just
That's fine.
For some reason I'm kind of seeing it clear this second. Jason Spangler, thank you very much for $1.99. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Raider Vision, a new member. Thank you so much, Raider Vision. Okay. So the schools right now are getting media payouts, 30 million, 50 million, whatever those dollar amounts, based on whatever their value is to the media partner, right? So whenever they make that arrangement with the media company, the conference is the intermediary. So they would buy the conference and then administer it like it's a business. And it would just then at that point be a contractual relationship with the schools.
But they're taking a cut out for themselves. They have to.
Of course. Yeah, it's not nonprofit.
So in order to cover that extra cut, you have to do something that is somehow bringing in that much more. Because they're not going to bring you in to do that just to make that much so you make money off it. So you actually have to raise the payout for the conference as a whole enough to make you worthwhile. And so my problem is from the conference level, not what each school could do to make more money, but the conference to bring in more money. I don't know what else they could do to come in and say, get the Big 12 with its current setup.
Right.
That much more money. So you're basically coming in saying, like, they're saying we could get a better contract for you with the networks. Well, maybe these conferences have their own lawyers, though. They have their own agents. They have this isn't like something new to them that they don't get. So what options are you bringing in? Are you bringing in advertising? Okay, well, they could do that on their own if they wanted to. That's where I'm having a loss. I don't understand what they could do.
Well, let me ask you a question.
That really brings in that much more money to make it worthwhile. Not that and maybe it is, and I just don't know.
So, oh my gosh, I just spaced it. I am so embarrassed. All right, I'm going to forget what I was going to say because I was going to say something about the European Premier League. Newcastle United was purchased 2 years ago by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Bahrain or something, one of them over there, which basically means they have unlimited funds, a country's amount of money they could pipe into this thing to do advertising. That's the trade. To do advertising, they support their airline. They talk about their international like TV packages and partners. They're buying that, and in trade,
but that's
getting a certain level of a certain level that they have to pay out.
Sure, but that's like that'd be like the equivalent of buying a school, though. I'm saying
why is the conference? Why isn't the conference?
Because the conference would be like the equivalent of buying a league.
Yeah.
And the league, like how does
PGA Tour of America was bought as a league by the guys who owned Live, right?
So basically, are they gonna what are they selling like advertisement positions for the conferences?
They'll sell shares. They'll sell they'll contracts for.
But shares mean you have to pay out dividends or profit to them, or like. And so that's money that would be going to the schools is going to someone else. So they have to provide a service that creates so much more value in payout that it pays for them and then some. So that's what I'm wondering, like, where's the growth that these guys are going to supposedly bring in? And maybe they have a plan and they know what they would do. I just think because they have to go through the conference and not the individual schools, that makes it harder. I think there's a lot you could do if they could buy in with a school.
Right.
I think that there's a lot more options, but as what he was saying to me in his response, and that's the only reason why I'm bringing this up, because I don't even know if any of this is true, but I just find it harder for them from the conference position to provide that much more value and payout for the schools than it would be directly with the school. That's my doubt. And once again, I'm not saying listen to me. I know what the hell I'm talking about, because I on this I do not. I
think it's a great thought experiment. I think the whole thing is a great thought experiment.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of change coming.
I've followed him for 10 years since he started with the original realignment that happened back in 2011. And I was one of his advocates through the Pac-12 saga, right? And everything he said didn't necessarily come through line by line, but he was right more than he was wrong. So I know he has contacts. I've tried to have him on the show a couple times. He's turned me down. Either he had scheduling difficulties or other things. I'm not going to stop, though, because I think it's really important. As a resource, he obviously has sources. The one caveat to that is we saw how media members were taken advantage of during the Pac-12 saga, where they were leaked stories by people to drive a narrative. And people were upset with the deliverer of that information, the John Canzanos and the who else I'm thinking of? Not
Wilner,
the guy who not the other guy. Don't say the other guy.
Canzano and Wilner.
Yeah, Canzano and Wilner.
And
yeah, those guys were being leaked stories from Washington State, from Oregon State, from Stanford, from Cal, because they had a vested interest in keeping the Pac-12 together. You weren't hearing stories out of these other schools until Crow stood up and started yelling at the moon at Arizona State. So it's I just from a mechanic standpoint, outside of the tax write-offs that the NCAA gets, I don't think the federal government's going to give a sovereign wealth fund from Saudi Arabia the tax benefit to buy the administration part of college football. I don't. Yeah. That's the part of it where it goes off the rails for me.
I don't see where there's enough benefit to outweigh the cost of letting them get in. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see if something pops up. Yeah.
We'll talk about this more tomorrow. Really quick, Moen, how hard is it for you to do a poll? I meant to do this when Matt was around, and maybe we'll do it again on another night, but just because we're talking about it, here's a poll question. Who let's see, which of these two things you think is worth most money? Is it college football in total or the NFL? And let that everybody, how do they engage with the poll?
Hold on, I got to create it.
Are we talking actual value or what we think should be the value?
No, I'm asking you as an individual, if you had to guess without going into a bunch of research and some other stuff, just off the top of your head, which one of those two things do you think is?
I didn't mean like current money attributed to it now, or what I think it should be. I know.
What if you were buying it as an investment? You were looking at a portfolio.
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
You haven't paid anything, but you're looking at what has the bigger upside.
Can I say it now, or do you want me to wait?
Or let's let the poll go.
Okay.
Poll's live.
Okay. And how do they engage with the poll, Moen?
They can it's up on chat. They can click on their answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
sure my answer is going to be different from chat.
Really quick, Summit Hawk, paid member already, $9.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Summit. Again, you've been a valued member out there through thick and thin. We've had some disaster type issues that you've come through on the other end, and we appreciate you being around, and you're definitely an OG as well. $9.99 as a super sticker. That's really cool. Obviously, anybody else can do those too. Do you have to be a member to do a super sticker?
Nope, no member. You don't have to be a member to do a super chat or a super sticker.
I love it. And then before we go, Sergeant Pickles, who's been a member for how many months? 5 months. Okay, that is incredible. 5 months. I think I've only had memberships for 6. Says, gotta head out. Love this community. Go Dogs. Love to have you here, Pickles. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I didn't see this live. We've been kind of jumping around a little bit tonight. All right, is it done?
Well, let's see. I can close it now. Well, 10 votes, 11 votes.
I think
Give it
like
another
maybe
second.
1 or 2 people voted the same as me, and that's
Let's
it.
keep waiting. Let's keep waiting.
I mean,
it's
this
not
is-
really
Hey,
going to
don't-
change. It's not going to
Okay.
change the percentage too much.
Okay, all right.
70. It's basically 70 to 30.
And what is it?
70% NFL, 30% college football.
Okay, I'll go last. Moen, what was your vote?
NFL.
Okay, Immaculate.
see, I'm coming at this from a perspective. Okay, are we investing? I'm totally taking college football because I buy low, and I think all the growth potential is in college football, and NFL is still going to grow.
Right.
But I mean, it's I think that we're actually seeing that start to peter off in terms of the problems with. I think they're actually going to maybe lose a little viewership. But no, NFL's worth more right now, and it's not even close. I've done some pretty in-depth looks into that, but I think college football is set to explode by some changes that are coming. At least I'm hoping. So,
right.
If you were to offer me stock in the NFL right now or stock in
Right.
the college football right now, I'd buy college football.
So
All of it, 100%.
That's the premise. I'm not sure I phrased the question well enough to get that distinction out to everybody, but I absolutely am a buy low, sell high guy. And between the two, you have one. You've heard the analogy. You got 2 guys you're recruiting to be on your baseball team. One runs to first base faster than the other. Which do you take? The one who wrote that's the number 1 recruit, or the guy who's kind of sloppy?
I think
The
the
answer
real.
Go ahead.
I think it's, if we're talking from a stock standpoint, the NFL is a blue chip stock.
It is.
Mhm.
It's you're not going to lose money on it.
Nope.
Right.
You
But
can buy high, stay high. It's probably still going to
Yeah.
grow, but I'm just saying, like, their growth
college
curve
football-
is leveling out a little bit.
yeah, the analogy ends. You pick the guy with the lousy form because you can train a guy to run better, which means he'll be faster. So, in my opinion, college football has an upside that honestly, I don't know where it ends. You've seen the passion out of Florida State fans. You've seen the passion out of Oregon State fans. This goes across borders, man. College football has passion that the NFL is a blue chip stock. College football is Microsoft in 1980.
College football needs a model that people can understand. When you're passionate about something and you get angry about it, that draws you in more. But when someone's not really connected to it and they look at it and go, this doesn't make sense, I mean, what are they watching into? But I think if in the future they create a model that makes sense.
Right.
And I just think the college game, with everything that happens, like game day, kids picking their teams versus guys getting drafted and working out the deals. And that way, I just kind of look at the NFL as more of like a mercenary league, whereas college football is kind of going in that direction, but you're still picking your team, not the other way around. Whereas in NFL, the team picks you. So I think there's a lot of potential in college football. I don't actually think it'll ever be worth more than the NFL, just because NFL model is large, metropolitan, city-based. Everyone in that city can rally around that. Whereas college football, it's a little more, people are all over the place with who they like. But I think that college football right now is set for some pretty amazing growth. Whether it passes the NFL, probably not, but that's not really my point.
Daniel Gygax, new member, minted, says NFL prints money and you should say Division I Power 5. I apologize if I messed that up. I'm a little tongue-tied tonight. So it is Division I football. It's not Division II or Division III. So thanks, Daniel, for clearing that up. All right, guys, we'll come back to that. I'm going to do that poll again. I'm going to do that poll when Bob's on next, which might be next week. Hint, hint. Bob Thompson might be back with us next week. Maybe
Nice.
as a post-Christmas gift to the show, he would show up. He said he may. And then we will be doing, more interviews, and then obviously more of these discussions related to realignment, which is kind of where we started. And that's not going away. It's not going to change unless something happened. The table got turned over, and basically everybody was put on a level playing field again. I don't think that's going to happen. So,
and just so folks know, with us doing this many shows, you might not see all of us on in every show. You may be three,
sure.
maybe two, but that just means there's going to be more connectivity with chat, with you guys, with your questions, with the things that you want, with your comments. So that, I know for me, and I know for these guys too, and talking with them, that's very important that you guys kind of feel connected. Because for me, just coming from chat and then ended up on these shows, I always want to make sure that the folks in chat and in the community are feeling like they're part of this. So just hope that you guys understand that if you don't see us on here every time, it's okay, but it's all meant so that you guys are actually more part of the show.
Mr. Monkey says, Mo and Immaculate, you guys come up with realignment flowchart. You could come up with a realignment flowchart, series of if-then decisions. We could pull each point and realignment as a group. Which one of you wants to sort of break it to everybody out there?
Bowen can take most of this, but as I told him and I responded, the if-then part is what gets me, because that's kind of how I think things. I mean, that comes from programming. I'm not a programmer, taking some of it, but it's that's programming, but that's also kind of how we think as human beings. And so if this happens, then this will happen. That, to me, that's how I look at all of this. So yeah, that's right up my alleyway there.
And we've talked about doing this. That's what's interesting. Was we talked about possibly making it a game.
We do. We've had some talks. So he was kind of nailed on something that we haven't talked about publicly.
Yeah, it's going to come, I think, but there are a lot of moving pieces to make something like that work. We're talking database, access databases or SQL or whatever that would have to layer on top of each other. I'm not a programmer, so I can't promise for resources, but we're working on it. The idea has merit. Thank you, Mr. Monkey.
Yeah, we'd have to come up with valuations for each move, each school, to each conference. It's actually pretty complicated, but yeah, we're thinking in that lines too.
Well, and let's put out a call. We have a great community. If there's one of you out there that has some time that thinks they could build something that we could turn into a game, if I pick Florida State to the Big 12, what does that change in the dynamics for the media deal? I don't know how it looks. I don't know how it works, but it would be really cool. And then we could do realignment geek out, which is what the hashtag was that Mr. Monkey says we could use. Sarge, I'm not sure when it's my turn what that means, but you're here now. All right, guys, I think we're going to sign out. Moen, you haven't said a lot tonight. It's probably my fault. I've been a little chatty. Is there anything you want to get out?
No, I've been sick, so I've been trying to save my voice as much as I could. So,
okay.
It's good that you were doing all the talking tonight. I would like to say screw Miami. Screw any kids that go to play there. We're not going to pay a kid $1 million who hasn't played a snap of college football yet.
Right.
I just completely disagree with that way of thinking, but hey, if you're a young kid, go play to Miami. I mean, get them paid $1 million, go 7-5, become an undrafted free agent in the NFL.
Well, and I think if they just did a salary cap for NIL immediately, that would change a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we'll
put in a max, say 10 million, and you have to disperse it to. You can put it all on one guy, or you can put it on 100 guys, but that's the max you could spend, and then make it something that the federal government tracks.
In the meantime, we'll just take the kids who want to play for us, and we'll develop them into offensive and defensive rookies of the year in the NFL.
Yep.
C.J. Stroud, Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely. Immaculate.
Well, hopefully it's a feel-good story. At Iowa, I know people don't pay a lot of attention to it, but going along the lines of how everything's about money and moving on, there's a little developing story at Iowa where 3 stars of the defense are all actually possibly talking together and thinking about staying together simply because they love being at Iowa so much, and it's kind of a special thing. And so Sebastian Castro, Jay Higgins, and DeJean are all talking about possibly coming back next year. And to me, I just like it as a story, not just because it's Iowa, but if guys were actually, because they care so much about each other and the team and what's going on there, that they would think about coming back, also for their own best interest in terms of showing off together to get their best spots in the NFL. But I'll be talking about that quite a bit here in the future if that happens to come true. If all 3 of those guys come back, it could be a pretty special return. If people thought the defense was good this year, just look out next year if that happens.
That's one thing that you guys, especially in the area of the Big Ten where you're sitting, the geography of it, you're probably going to be playing more Washington and Oregon than you might have thought originally. And so
we got Washington next year.
And that's something I think you guys, it'll be interesting to see. High flying offense, Pack, Iowa defense. In my opinion, defense wins championships. So
plus they have to come to Iowa. Sergeant Pickles is actually talking about going to that game. So
is he really? That's awesome.
Yeah, he was asking me questions about Iowa City and where to go and what to do. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Shonsky, and let me just do a quick shout out to all our new members. If you're late to the party, we're gifting memberships now, not every show, not all the time, but then we're getting gifts done by our members. And we really appreciate that. To gift something, it is the giving season. Christmas is next Monday. Click that little gift icon next to the comment section where you can type a message. Click on there and give some memberships out to people. It is a good thing that you can do for the group or our family. And we love having you guys being part of that. So anyways, thank you very much. Marshall's beating UTSA. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. UTSA's quarterback went into the portal. All right. And I missed that pick because of it.
And he did it 2 hours before the game. It was reported 2 hours before the game started.
That is absolutely going to kill me. Absolutely going to kill me. Shonsky says Puka Nacua is going to be Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. I hope so. But it'll be hard to beat that quarterback. It'll be hard to beat. Let's see. Sarge says my gift to you is my presence. That's what he's telling me. Thank you, Sarge. I appreciate that. All right, guys, we're going to sign out here. It's been a great show. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow night, same time, 8 Eastern, we're going to be doing a post-signing day show and also more realignment. So join us then. If you haven't come in and came late, you want to watch some Matt Loveless. We talked about Loveless. We talked about Pac-2, Washington State and Oregon State, and their victory in their legal fight against the other 10 schools leaving. Other than that, I'm going to sign out for Immaculate and Moen.
Opie just got here. Opie
is always late.
I think he just came from another show that probably wrapped up.
Oh, did Greg's show just end? I didn't know.
Probably,
I was
I'm guessing.
head with Greg's show.
He went on.
Yeah, that turkey. I'm going to figure him out one day.
Yeah.
What just got here? Sorry, you're going to have to go back and watch it, Opie. I can't.
Yeah, we can't.
More than that.
We did
Can't
2
have
hours.
him back
So.
on. Matt Loveless was fantastic. We really appreciate him being here. All right, without anything else, I think we will sign out. Everybody have a great night. Stay safe. Happy holidays, and peace out.